So first of all, we figured out about libraries on Eagle. We understood how to install our own libraries, and after that, what we did is we placed all the components that we require. So now these are just components. Okay, so now we've told Eagle that these are the components that we want, but they won't do anything meaningful unless we actually link them up together, right? So in the second session that we'll be doing is we'll be actually linking them up, and after that we'll be laying them out on the board. So the second session is pretty exciting. So let's continue. So first of all, I forgot one important step. Actually, the most important step of using Equal. You have to constantly remember to save your work, because if you forget and um your laptop crashes or for whatever reason your work gets damaged or something, it's always good to save your work. So I want everyone to go click on the save button and save the schematic with any name you want. I saved it as schematic.sch. You can save it with whatever you want and press save. So everyone just save your work first. So now that we just saved it, you'll notice this is a local repository. So suppose if I want to share it with, um, say, I'm working on this final year project with a couple of my friends, and we want to collaborate on this schematic. Like, say, we've assigned certain roles. Like, I'll be working on the power section. My friend will work on the microcontroller section or something like that. So in this current scenario, it's not really possible to collaborate in such a way. So for collaboration and all those sharing purposes, we use GitHub. So I'll just quickly show you how it's like to add this file to a repository in GitHub. So if you all will remember, at the beginning of the session, I had made this repository on GitHub called demoboard underscore ISA. So I'll just quickly add this uh, Eagle project to that repository, and then I'll show you how what it looks like. You're not expected to understand all these commands, because obviously I'm pretty sure none of you have worked on GitHub till now. So at the end of these steps, you'll be able to see that. Okay, then we'll do these steps later, I guess. So Jatin, can you share that what you can that schematic that I shared with you on the group?
Yeah, I'll put it on the WhatsApp group. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jatin will share a schematic with you all. So I'll just first tell you how it works. So I've showed you all how to move components using this move button. You can move components like this. Similarly, you can copy components using this button. You can delete components using this button. So how you wire up schematics is using this. It's called the net. So how it works is the net is actual the wire between all the components. So you have to click on these terminals and then you have your wiring. It's like that. Okay. So that's how you wire all the components. Now, how do I know if a wire has been connected or not properly? So there's this icon on the left called show. So if I press on show and I press on that particular wire, so if you zoom in very closely, you'll be able to see that whenever I click on the wire, the particular terminal gets illuminated when I click on it. So that means it's a successful connection. So, but then if you notice, when I connect the schematic that I've sent you all, when I connect all the wires, like say I want to connect all the grounds together or something like that. Say these two are ground and I want to connect it like this. It's actually pretty messy if you do something like this. It won't look good. So what we all, there's this trick on Eagle that we call labeling. So how it works is, so the first connection is with this power jack. Is it the same? Yeah, it's the same. Okay, cool. So the power jack, the pin 1 is basically the input, and the rest of the two pins have to be connected to ground. So there's this trick. Click on the first pin, extend it like this, and then click on name over here. You have to make a small extension here, it doesn't matter how long, fair amount of distance. Click on pin 1 if you want. Okay, wait. So all I need you guys to do is click on net, click on the first pin of DCJ0202 and extend it like this. After that, what you guys do is click on name over here. Click on name and then just click on that wire that we just made right now. Then you'll see this option called new name. And this is basically the input voltage that is unregulated, that will be coming from a battery or something like that. So it is basically the unregulated input voltage. So a good way to name it is just name it V underscore IN or something like that. You can put your own name, whatever you want. It could be volt in or volt IN. And once that is done, ensure that place label is ticked and click OK. And just place it on top like that. What you have to do is select on name and click on that green wire that you just, the green net that you just made. Give it a name, preferably something that is meaningful like volt input or input voltage or something like that. Select on press label, press OK. And once you are done with that, you should be having something like this. So now if you notice the schematic, the other end of the voltage input goes to our 7805, the VI pin of the 7805. So just navigate to wherever you have your 7805, and instead of you needing to route it like this, so imagine this is just a very basic controller, but if you have a very large controller with so like 100 pins or something, you can't have this crisscross of wires going here and there. It'll look chaotic. So what we do is do the same here, extend the net on the VI pin of the 7805, click on name, and whatever you name you gave to pin 1 of DC J0202, give it the same name. Then it will ask you, do you want to connect N$1 and volt in? So yeah, click on yes and place the label. Sorry. So once you've completed that step, I want you all to click on the show icon and click on the voltage input pin. So you can see here it is lighting up, and it is also lighting up over here. So that means we've made a successful connection between the two pins. So this is the labeling system. So what this enables us to do is you don't need to connect all the wires and make a huge crisscross mess on the board. So now suppose you want to move this component. Okay. So if I click on move, then you will see that it is not moving the wire. The wire is fixed to one position. So say you want to move this entire setup. So what you need to do is click on move this group icon over here, and select the whole box like this. And what you need to do is select the whole DC jack as well as the wire, and then you need to right click, and then in right click you will get move. Wait a second. Ah. So once you select the group, click on the move icon over here, to know that your group is properly selected. You'll see that it kind of glows up a little bit. So that means that your um, section is properly selected. Then click on the move icon and then right click. Sorry for the order. And then you'll see this option called move colon group. So once you do that, you'll see that you can move both these components at the same time. So suppose you want to move this whole bunch of capacitors and resistors, you can just follow the same steps. And then once you're done, just press escape. So what I want you all to do is you have the schematic in front of you. I want you all to try and replicate this on your own. So I'll just do the ground pins for you, I guess. So pin 2 and 3 have to be shorted first of the DC jack. You have to short them. And then let's name this G and D for ground. Okay, I'll just tell you one more thing. If you are using the net and see, you get the circle once you are on the terminal, right? So click there, and if you want to stop the net, you have to click twice. So if you click it once, the net will get fixed at that position. So if I want to end the net, I need to click it again. So click twice at the same point, and then the net will finish. Stop. So then I name it, and again I give this the name ground. And one more thing, suppose I want to rotate this. I want to rotate the label. So you can use your right click. You will see that you are able to rotate the parts. The jack is the same. There's no issue with the jack. You have to connect pin 2 and pin 3 to ground. The switch is different. So I want you all to connect across pin 1 and pin 3 of the switch. Since the schematic that I sent you all is made on SparkFun, so it's kind of different. So I want you to connect across pin 1 and pin 3. Ignore pin 2 and pin 4. Pretend that they don't exist. So now that you figured out how to wire everything, let's go ahead and do it. And if you have any doubt, just drop a message in the chat box. And if anyone has any doubts on why we are connecting the 7805 like that, so I think everyone has been provided with some documentation on the 7805, right? So I want everyone to just open that data sheet once. And this is the reason why we are connecting it like that, because basically it's mentioned in the data sheet. So this is generally the best approach to go ahead with it. A zero point 0.3 microfarad capacitor in the input, greater than 0.1 microfarad at the output. So this is how we use this circuit. And these circuits are generally universal. So if you look at any other company data sheet, you'll see the same thing. If you want, you can follow the same naming procedure that I have done. If you have any doubts, then you can ask in the chat box. So if I can have your attention for a second, this is what our repository looks like when it has files. So as you can see, this is the last, like I've just kept a copy of my schematic online. So if you all, I think someone has shared this repository with you all. So if you can go to GitHub, you can see the contents of the repository if you want. We'll be sharing the repository with you later, so I don't need to rush. If you don't understand what GitHub is and what it is doing, no need to worry or panic. We'll be sending some documentation on GitHub and videos on how to use it later. So for now, I want everyone to just finish the schematic as is on the picture that has been shared on WhatsApp. So once you've figured out how to lay out the schematics, it's pretty simple. Okay, okay, I'll show you all how to name the 3-pin component. So what we can do is, if I can have everyone's attention for a second, the SparkFun allowed me to make two-pin components. So since 2-pin isn't available in the default library, what I want everyone to do is, you can do this. You can give pin 1 to ground. Let's give pin 1 ground. Let's give pin 3 as V in, or whatever you've called this specific voltage, volt in, whatever it is. And give pin 2 to 5 volts. So the reason I had made this is because for whatever reason, suppose you want to power your Arduino from something like a power supply or something, then you can like directly use a header pin and connect it here. You can give your 12 volts regulated supply here directly. So you don't need the DC jack in that case. So you can power your Arduino by two ways. Either one is using this DC jack, or the second one is you can give the power supply to this volt in pin. There's one more trick that I'd like to mention, and everyone don't forget to save your files at regular intervals. That's the most important thing. And one more thing I'd like to mention, but I was going to do this approach, but since people have had problems with their libraries, I've decided to like just show you how it works. Uh, there is this quick trick that you can do. Not now, I mean for the future. Like some people have had issues with libraries. So if you look at supply, there's this cool option called supply. So what this does is you don't need to individually sit and name all the power supplies and everything. So if you connect everything to this, like instead of us manually naming everything 5 volt and ground and something, all you need to do is just bring this up and connect the components here. So all the components connected are by default pulled down to ground. You don't need to relabel anything. So you don't need to do that for now. So I just want you all to finish idea about microcontrollers. I'll just give you a brief. So the first pin is reset. So what the reset pin does is, if you like, um, if suppose you have a blink circuit or say some kind of a circuit that you designed, it goes into a loop and you want the controller to start over from the beginning. So what the reset pin does is, if you give it a low voltage, then the controller basically resets, like it starts its execution of the code again. So that's why a reset pin is necessary. If you don't have a reset pin, you can't really um, start your program all over without the reset pin. Mm, Then you have the pin 4, which is just a normal pin. You have pin 3, which is also just a normal pin. Pin 2 is a special pin, it's called the SCK or the serial clock. Pin 2. So whenever you're using something like I2C or SPI, the serial clock always comes into the picture. And for those familiar with SPI, you'll also know these terms: MISO, MOSI, master and slave out. Sorry, master and slave out, and master out, slave in. If you don't know the meanings, no need to worry. Just label them down. Okay, say you want to move a label. If I can have everyone's attention, if you want to move a label, so if you notice, even the labels have this plus sign. So you can press on move, click on that plus sign, and then you can drag the label to wherever you want it to be. So suppose I wanted all the labels to be aligned along the same vertical axis for aesthetic purposes. So you can just click on that plus sign and drag it along. So yeah, now it's all aligned. And I want everyone to like keep checking whether their uh, connections are made properly using the show button. So this project that we are making right now, it's a very general purpose board. Okay, so like it's just a development board of a very like general category. It doesn't do anything specific. Like it hasn't been designed keeping anything specific in view. So suppose you want to control a motor, like you need to use an H bridge to control a motor. I hope you've all heard of H bridges and what they are. So to do that, you would need a specific like this board currently is not enable to do that, like you'll have to add a specific separate H-bridge circuit. So if you want to make it more specific, then you can add your own H-bridge circuit and all those things. But like that will make the board more specific in nature. You don't need to name the components right now. Just keep them as it is. I'll show you how to name components later. So at the end, if you have any extra components, you can just delete them. So yeah, I think one switch and one resistor is extra. One capacitor and one resistor is extra. So at the end, you should be left with something like this. Remember to save. Right, the circuit on the right. So what this does, Prithvi had a doubt about the reset circuit. So what happens is you need to pull the reset pin on the ATtiny to low for a fraction of a second, and then you need to pull it back to high. So this is basically an RC network, this R and C. So how it works is that uh, when you press the switch over here, you will see that the switch connects to ground. Right. So when you press the switch over here, you'll see that this part shorts itself. The reset pin gets connected to ground. But then what happens is that this 5 volt allows the capacitor to charge itself. So after that, what happens is once you release the switch, this ground path gets blocked, and then it is only connected to 5 volts. I'll just move this a little to make it more easy to explain. So Prithvi, so it's like this, right? So when you press the reset switch, then you'll see that the reset pin is directly pulled down to ground. So that would be for like 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds. So you just press the reset switch, and as long as the reset switch is pressed, the reset pin is directly pulled down to ground. But as soon as you leave the reset pin, what happens is that this capacitor then gets charged from this 5 volt that you can see. And once it gets charged, this is like an open circuit. The capacitor, once it gets charged, it doesn't allow any DC current to flow here, DC voltage or whatever. This becomes an open circuit, and then the reset pin is directly pulled to high. So at this point, your capacitor is no longer in reset mode. So whenever you pull the capacitor again to ground, the capacitor discharges itself, and then this circuit is pulled down to ground again, and so on. The capacitor is used so that yeah, so that whenever uh, the reset pin can't be in floating stage as well. Yeah, so it blocks the ground, like it uh, ensures that the reset pin is always pulled up to 5 volts whenever it is not pressed. And when it is pressed, it ensures that the reset is only pulled down to ground. So what happens is that there might be a case where there is a floating voltage if we don't have this, or we don't have this. So we don't want that to happen. So for that, we use the capacitor to ensure that this is an open circuit only. and we only have this 5 volt. If you want any info about how this reset circuit works, I'll send you a link later. One more thing about the capacitor value specifically here, you can't have a very high capacitor value, or else what will happen is that it will take a very long time to charge. Like, for example, if the time constant here, like it takes 1 second to charge completely this capacitor. So that means you'll have to keep the button pressed for 1 second before this becomes an open circuit. So that's why you always want this value to be a low value so that you don't have to press the reset circuit for a long time. It should be pretty like it should charge itself within a microsecond or a millisecond at max. Everyone who have completed till this stage, uh, if you haven't, don't worry, take your time. So for those who have, so there's this option over here. If you click on the down arrow, you'll get this option called ERC. And it stands for error check or something like that. So if you click on that, it will tell you all errors that. So we don't have any errors. We have a couple of warnings. Warnings are okay. We'll deal with them later. So if you have any errors, please resolve them first. We need to ensure that there are no errors. If there are errors, then that's a problem. If you have a couple of warnings, that's okay. We can figure them out.
So Vic,
So now, if you've noticed the ERC error messages, most of them are about values or names or stuff like that. So now we'll just quickly put in some values. Actually, this is not a very like you don't need to do it, but for future reference, it's a good thing to do. So similar to the name icon, you have a value icon just to the right. So click on that and just fill in some values. So for this, I think we need a 0.1 microfarad. For this, you can put a 0.1 as well. And all the resistors, just put 330 ohms. Actually, these are all pretty safe values. So for resistors, put 330E. E is a terminology that we use. It just means that it's a 330 ohm resistor. Sorry. Okay. Capacitors 0.1 microfarad, 0.1 UF. Yeah. So once that is done, um, for this LED, that is the one connected to 5 volts, name it something like PWR underscore LED. And this you can name the PGM LED. Name the AT tiny as AT tiny, I guess. And the LED to the Mesopen you can name as program LED, PGM underscore LED. You can name the 80 tiny as 80 tiny, and you can name the header pins as header or something. Okay, so after that I named the 80 tiny as 80 tiny. I named the 6 pin header as header. I named the 3 pin header as power. I named the switch as switch. And I named the 7805 as 7805. So once that is done, if you do the ERC, you'll see that, yeah, there are lesser errors. These are all okay. For all those who have completed till the naming, what this is now we've told Eagle that this is how our board is supposed to be connected. So I'd like you all to just click on any particular pin and you'll see them all lighting up on the board. So that means that Eagle knows that 5 volts is here, 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 and wherever else they are. So this is you telling Eagle that these pins need to be connected. So once you finished with that, I'd like to show you one thing. So suppose you want to procure the components. Procure means you want to buy these components. So generally what we do is we go to Lamington, right? So Lamington में we don't take the schematic and go there कि भैया मुझे ये components चाहिए. We need something called a BOM. So if we want to buy the components, we need something called a BOM or bill of materials. So that is basically a shopping list of sorts that will tell you that you need these many, like you need, for our case we need two LEDs, three resistors, three capacitors. So to make a bomb, what you need to do is first of all save, then go to file, and then in file go to export. Then in export you will see BOM. And then you just click on BOM. And so yeah, that's it basically. If you want to save it in text format or CSV or HTML, you can just choose it like that. List attributes. So you can uncheck list attributes if you want. Ensure that values is checked, and then you can select the output format of your choice. So suppose we want a text format, so you can then view it. So it will look something like this. Then you can close, save it. So suppose I want to call it 80 tiny underscore bomb. Saved. It doesn't matter what you select, this is just for demo purposes. So if I go back to my file, I'll see that I have the bill of materials with me. So I can go to the vendor and say that I want 3.1 microfarad, 330 ohms, 17805, and these are the packages that I need them in. So that's for the bomb. So now that we have told Eagle that these are the connections that we need to tell Eagle where we want to place individual connections. So there is this button over here, SCHBRD. So once we press that, it will give us a warning that schematic.brd does not exist. So should it create from schematic? So press yes. So this is your board layout page. And these are the components that you have selected and you have wired up. So all these yellow wires that you can see are called air wires. So first of all, we need to place the components on the board. So this yellow outline that you can see over here, this is the area that will be created into a PCB. So first of all, what you can do is click on the move icon and we don't need such a big PCB actually, we can make it smaller. Just select the edges and I think this is good enough. Just press on the corners and you'll be able to just ensure that it's still a square or like straight lines. With something like this, it won't look good, I guess. So now you have your board in front of you and you have the components in front of you. So the next step is to place your components. So there is this generally accepted trend of if you have the board in front of you, you have the input side on your left and the output side on your right. This is kind of like a generally accepted um, way for programming. So not programming, for designing your board. So for our input, first of all, we have the power. So I want everyone to select DCJ0202 and place it roughly over here. Somewhere in the corner will be good enough. And I want everyone to make sure that if the pads, that is the green solder pads, if they are going off the board, you'll get these red hashed lines over here, if you can notice. So everyone just make sure that you're not getting those red lines and that it is within the boundary of the board. So here I'm not getting any hash line, so we are good to go. And okay, so now we have this one input. Next, let's put the switch over here. Okay, now we've put the switch over here. The same rules apply. You click on the move and look for a plus icon in between, and then you move it around. Okay, so now that we have the switch and our DC jack connected, let's also place our power. So the generally accepted trend is that our power regulator has to be as close as our the input, which is the DC jack, as possible. So let's just place it around here. Okay, there's this error. I'll just move it along a little further. There's also this trick, if you want a grid, Then you can also place a grid over here, so it will make it easier to line up your components. There's this grid icon on the corner left. You can see it here. And one more thing, here you have your units as mil, MIL. So 1 mil is basically 1/100th of an inch. So like 1 mm is 1/100th of a centimeter. 1 mil is 1/100th of an inch. So generally the unit that Eagle uses is mil. So we'll stick with that. And now that you've placed your 7805, there's one thing that you can do. Suppose you want it closer to the boundary, but if I make it closer, then I'm getting these red hash lines. So what I can do is select it and press the Alt button on your keyboard. So the Alt button gives you a little finer control on component placement. So yeah, so now I'm able to move it much finer and then press click and I'll be able to place the component. Yeah, so now I'm able to place it much closer to the edge. If I want to, if like need arises ever. So now that is done. Let's keep the headers over here. Like near the bottom right corner, I guess. So I'll just tell you all the general notation, I mean, general trend that we use. So DC jack is generally at the corner left, top left corner. Output LEDs are generally somewhere around here. And rest, this section is meant for the controller and any kind of peripherals that you use. So I'll put the LEDs also near the power switch. And I'll keep the Arduino, sorry, the ATtiny over here. Like this is all just placement. So and one more thing, the capacitors that are connected to your 7805, right? They should be as close as the regulator as possible because I won't get into too much theory because that will be boring. So I've shared a couple of YouTube links. So if you go through those, so this guy explains why you need the capacitors as close as your regulators as possible because if there is a lot of distance, what happens is there's a lot of impedance that gets added due to the distance between the two components. So to reduce that impedance, we need to keep these components as close as possible. And also, if you want to rotate the capacitor, use your right mouse. As you can see, just use your right mouse and place them wherever you think necessary. There's no hard and fast place where you have to keep them. And one more thing, since the power jack is also related to power, let's keep it near here, suppose, near the DC jack. Let's keep the resistors somewhere over here. You don't have to follow every single step I'm doing. It's like just take a reference from what I'm doing and try and figure out on your own. Because you can't exactly copy PCB design. It's all practice and trial and error. Okay, now just to show you something. Suppose you decided that no, these resistors are taking up too much space for whatever reason. Suppose you feel that नहीं ये resistor और छोटा कर सकते हैं क्या? So you can. So what you need to do is save it, go back to your board layer, the schematic layer, I'm sorry. And this is what resistor R3. Suppose I want a smaller resistor R3. So I can just look for resistor R1, R2, R3. So I want this to be smaller than it is. So what you can do is right click on the component, select replace. So then go to the section that we find components in, that is RCL. And once you look at RCL, so we had selected this earlier. Let's look at something smaller. So earlier we had selected 020710. Let's make that 02077. So just for one R3. So now if you switch it over, you'll notice that this resistor is much smaller than the others. And if you want, you can go ahead and replace all the other resistors. So now I'll say our board is looking like a board, but now we have to tell Eagle exactly how the routing has to be done. So there's this feature called auto router. So if you click somewhere here, so what it does is if you select continue, it uses some mathematics and it wires the PCB up for us. But this is actually pathetic. Don't ever use auto router because there are a lot of issues that could come up by using auto router. Like it's not worth it. Never use auto router. For example, over here, there is this untold rule in PCB designing that you should never have right angles like this. Like if you have some kind of high frequency application, then right angles cause all kinds of havoc and chaos. Like they can act as antennas, they could act as they could pick up signals from your vicinity, and they'll just ruin the output of your circuit. So it is never recommended to use auto router, however tempting it might seem. Even if I want to make it an high effort, let's see how it. It's always recommended from all points of view that you do the routing on your own because you never know how the machine works, and you don't want your project to fail just because you were lazy to do the routing on your own. So let's cancel that and let's undo that. So now you should be having this mess of wires, and we need to route everything together. So first of all, um, let's start over here. So there's one more thing that you have to keep in mind. So um, you all should know that like the resistance of a wire is dependent on quite a few factors like the resistivity, the length, and the area of the wire, right? Rho L by A. So greater the area, the lesser the resistance. So the lesser the resistance, the more current it can carry before heating up. So that is some basic Ohm's law that you all should be knowing as engineers. So what that means is the greater amount of current you want to carry in your circuit, the thicker the area of the copper tracks has to be. So how do we decide what kind of what thickness of copper tracks do we need? We need to figure out the thickness that we need of the current carrying track to figure out how much current it can carry without blowing up or heating up too much. So there are numerous current trace with calculators available. I'll just put the link to this over here. Check it out. So here you will see some input data like maximum current, so in amps. So our current will barely carry, I'll say like uh, 50 amps is an overstatement, but still 50. And we don't want it to rise above more than 25. So it's saying that we can have an external trace of 0.1 mil. So that means that if our circuit is limited to 50 milliamps and keep all the rest values default, peak voltage 5 volts. So that means that our circuit will be safe even if we use a trace width of 0.1 mils. So 0.1 mils is actually very less. So the problem with 0.1 mils is that some PCB manufacturers aren't able to make such thin PCB traces. So we'll be going with a value of 6 mils. 6 is kind of a general value, like most PCB manufacturers, even local ones, can work on 6 mil width. So to route all these wires, there's this option over here called route air wire. So I want you all to select that. And you can see that 6 is already selected over here. So once you have this air wire selected with a width of 6, you can just click on any 2 points and you'll see that you're able to wire them together like this. So that's how you, and once your wire is done correctly, you'll see that the yellow air wire has disappeared. So similarly, like I routed this wire, um, you can start routing all the other wires together except ground. I want everyone to not route anything except ground. Yeah, Jatin. So what I want you to do is um, you can press on any of these light green pads and like route them all together like this. What I want you all to do is route all the wires except the ground wires. There's this cool trick that is used for the ground wires specifically. So I'll show you all how it works. Routing is actually a very time-taking procedure, so I'll give you all some 15 minutes to try and route everything. One way that you can ensure that your PCB placements are proper is that you need to see that this kind of crisscross is happening as less as possible. So if you notice, if I take this over here, then there's a little less crisscrossing compared to earlier. So you can change the routing accordingly. You don't need to fix to this strategy. And yeah, apart from ground, just try and route everything else. And I'll show you all one more thing. Since we are making a two-layer PCB, it's not, you can shift between the top layer and bottom layer. So if you're in the top layer, you'll get this maroon colored wiring like this. Now say if you want to go to the bottom layer, for example, if I want to route something from here Okay, suppose I want to do this connection from here to here, but these it's not possible because this is coming in the way. So what I can do is I can click the mid, like if you have a mouse, then you like, select the 16 bottom. So then you'll get a light blue colored wire, and then you can route it like this. So anything that is brown, maroon color is on the top layer. Anything that is sky blue is on the bottom layer. And there's one more trick that you can use. Suppose for whatever reason you needed to go from the top, bottom layer or the top layer, whatever. Suppose I want to go to the from the top layer. Say I want to go to the bottom layer now, and so I can use the middle mouse click. I'll get something called a via. So what the via does is that now I've changed the PCB layers. So from here to here, it's on the top layer. And from the via, again, it goes to the bottom layer. If you are able to figure that out. So I'll give you all 10 minutes till 2:40. Try and route it as much as possible. And like just for a tip, routing isn't easy. Like um, you need to have a good understanding of stuff before you can make routings that are functional and look good actually. So I'll quickly try to route this as fast as I can. You all continue on your own design. And don't route the ground pins at all, please. I need to show something. I hope everyone is working on routing at the moment. If I need to say delete any kind of a wire, so there's this option called rip up. So here you don't use the delete for the routings. You use this option called rip up. So here, suppose I want to delete this wire. So I can click on the rip up and you'll see that it gets converted back to an air wire. So if you need to undo anything, you can use the rip up button. And a shortcut for those who have a mouse at their disposal, you can use the middle mouse, that is the scroller thing, to switch from the top layer to the bottom layer. Generally, while using Eagle, it's recommended to use a mouse for its general ease of use. Like it makes life a lot easier. And I'll just give you an example of how the wire can be used. So if I can have everyone's attention right now. So I want to connect this SCK pin to the SCK header to the SCK pin. But there's kind of a mix up. I can't switch between, like, I can't use either layer right now. I'll need to use both the layers. So I can go in the top layer. I can switch over, and then here I can use the middle click. I'll get this green knob kind of a thing. And now I'll be able to switch from the top layer to the bottom layer, or bottom layer from the top layer. It's actually recommended to use the wires as less as possible because they actually kind of uh, they're not recommended, like using them a lot. So I think just my grounds are left, and here also you can use your show button to see all the connections that you've made, to ensure that the connections that you have made are proper. Like if I press the ground over here, then all the ground should light up. So yeah. And one more thing, if you all have noticed, there's a lot of blank space over here. I don't need the PCB to be this big. And why should a less smaller PCB be preferred? Because for one, it's obviously cheaper to manufacture a smaller PCB. And yeah, I mean, why would you need a big PCB when you can do the same thing in a small PCB? So if you want, you can like try and reduce the size as much as possible, but yeah, that's your wish. For demo purposes, this is good enough. It's preferable to keep the components at a certain distance. So if you keep the components too close to each other, there might be issues with respect to proper soldering. So suppose I keep all these three resistors this close. I can, but then there are a couple of problems which comes around that, like, I won't be able to solder them properly, and if there's a problem, I won't be able to remove them. So it depends, like how good you are at soldering, you can solder them closer. So that will obviously save board space and save money. So I think I'll continue with this. If you're still routing, then I'd just advise everyone to just stop routing and look at what I'm doing, because routing is, it'll take some time if you're not done. So now you'll notice that all these air wires are still left. You can't leave them hanging. So there's this trick. So I want you all to select like those who have completed. If not completed, then just watch. Um, Select polygon and ensure these settings are there over here. Solid, thermals on, and drop orphans. And keep an isolate distance of around 12, I guess. Huh. Rest of the settings I think are default. So just change the isolate distance to 12. Select on polygon. And what you need to do is make an outline of the board, the yellow board line that we have made. So once you've done that, if you've connected the signals properly, you should be seeing this option. It will ask you for a signal name and then give the signal name as GND ground. Click OK. And after that, go to the bottom layer and do the same thing over there. So now you should have this kind of a dotted line on both the top and bottom layers. And everyone just watch right now. So below the polygon icon, there's this button called rat's nest. So if you've selected the isolate distance properly and everything, if you press on rat's nest, you should see something happening. Okay, is there wire left? Okay, one second. So you should see that the entire PCB has filled up. So all the grounds have been completed. There's still some connection that I haven't done. Okay, cool. So I haven't routed these 5 volts yet. I'll just do that quickly. So what this has created is, it's created something called a ground plane. So all this red that you are seeing is basically ground. So in PCB design, it's always recommended that you have a ground as large as possible. There are a ton of benefits to having large grounds. Basically, it helps in removing noise, it helps in stabilizing your power circuits, and a lot of other benefits as well. So if you've completed this step, you should see this red ground, and on the other side, you should be seeing this blue ground. So one more thing. So if you've created your circuit, and you should obviously want to have your name on it. So you can go to this 25 layer T names, and you can do two things here. If you want to delete any names, you can do that. Like I already have 80 tiny here. I don't need it written twice. I can go and delete some names if I want. If I want, I can also edit names. But here I want to add my name. So I say So here I've added my name. I say tiny board. I don't know. I just thought of it randomly. So now that we have this made in, our board is ready for production. Like we can send it over to the PCB vendor. Before that, there's this cool trick that I like to use. There's this website called Oshpark, Oshpark, PARK, sorry. Put the link over here. So if you have created your file, what you can do is you can browse for the Eagle file that you have made on your PC. I'll just navigate to it just a second. Ensure that your board is saved, everything is saved, and you can select schematic.brd. So once you do that, this is a pretty cool website. So this is how your PCB will look in real life. So this is telling me this is the dimension 61 by 55.6. It will cost me $26. So this is an American website, so it's expensive. So we have an alternative for that. If you want to modify something based on this, you can go ahead and do so. So yeah. So now let's quickly do something called this option called CAM. So what a CAM processor does is it generates a Gerber file. So a Gerber file is basically all the data that you need to send over to a PCB vendor. So you just select over here the generate CAM processor, then ensure all these layers are selected and click on process job. I'll just do this very quickly because time's already up. I'll show you how you want to do it if you want to do it. So now my PCB is ready to be created. So I'll just close Eagle right now. And there's this website called PCB Power. So once your Gerber is generated, you can go to PCB Power. So this is an Indian website. You can create your own PCBs over here. So what was our dimension? Okay, let's just do a general stuff, something 50 cross 50. It's a two-layer PCB. Let's get the quote. So these are all some generic stuff that you can put in. PCB name, single board panel, these are all not like keep it at default. Here you can adjust how many PCBs you want. Suppose I want 5. 2 layers. Keep the material at FR4, which is the dielectric that we use. Keep all these settings at default because it will get expensive otherwise. So one thing, if you've noticed, I've reopened my board and the rat's nest is gone. So if I click on rat's nest again, it's back. There's no need to worry about that. So yeah, continuing here. So finish copper thickness, just keep all these at default because otherwise it gets pretty expensive. If you want anything like lead free or something, you can use other options. Then you have solder mask option. You can choose your own color. So if you choose a black color, that means your PCB will be black or something like that. So yeah, and um, over here you can upload the Gerber file that you just generated, and here you can put in how much time you want it to be produced in. So 7 days, 10 days, 3 days. So the lesser days you put, the more expensive it will be, and you can obviously expect around 2 days for shipment. So this is the price that they are giving us, 308 per PCB for five. So that's around 1540, including tax. It's around 1817. So if I say I want it in a longer time, say suppose 25 working days, so the price will reduce accordingly. So then it will be done in just 1410. So that's your choice on how to make PCBs. So okay. So does anyone have any doubts on the entire topic till now? How to improve the routing process? There's no actual answer to that. That is just trial and error. Like you have to keep on making PCBs. So initially your PCBs will be like, if you're lucky they will work. If not, then they might not work. Like the key is not to be disheartened. I'll just show you a PCB that I made last year, like the same schematic. I'll just show you how it looks. This is the schematic that I had made, is identical to the one that we made today. And this is the layout I had done for it. So much smaller. And you can also round the edges, which makes it look a little nicer, in my opinion. Jatin has WhatsApped an image on the group. So there you'll see what this PCB actually looks like after it's soldered.